When I was 6, we moved to a small town, and the church there had this cookbook. And in this cookbook was this wacky cake recipe. This is probably the reason why I don't like cake. They always seem too fluffy or too dry or too something. This is a really moist cake. And a few weeks ago I asked Mom, so why couldn't you take that and do it without the cocoa and make it into a spice cake? Use cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, and make it into a spice cake instead. And she said, oh, that's a good idea. Why don't we do it? She's been on me about doing it, and I haven't done it. But I think I'm going to attempt it. I'm going to do a half batch. And something we learned, this says put it in your oblong pan and stir it with the fork. It actually doesn't get as well stirred as it could, so it's easier to make it in a bowl with a mixer and then put it in with a squeegee. So I'm going to get out the ingredients and attempt to make a spice cake using this vinegar and soda leavening recipe. This is a really moist cake. I've always liked it. It's probably ruined other cakes for me because of that. Just a note, one of the Marlboro cookbooks, I believe it was the red one, Towns, Trails, and Special Times, has a similar cake, but instead of the water, the cold water over oil, they use cold coffee. But I'm going to get out the ingredients, see about making a half batch of this cake. So we were talking about, and this is what we determined would be for a full cake: a teaspoon of cinnamon, a half teaspoon of cloves, and a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg. I'm making a half, so I'm going to cut that in half. Mom just whispered behind me, where's your pan? Hadn't thought about the pan. It's in the cupboard. I'll have to get it out. But first I'm going to finish doing this. Quarter teaspoon of clove. Mom says this doesn't have a label, but it is clove. So oh, actually it says cloves on it. It's written on it without a label. Okay. And half teaspoon of quarter teaspoon of nutmeg. And actually, Mom found somewhere along the line that adding vanilla to the chocolate cake enhanced the chocolate flavor. And so we're also going to add half a teaspoon of vanilla to this to enhance the flavor. But I'm going to mix this first, and then I'll add it with the liquid, with the water, which I need to get everything else ready. So I'll be back in a bit. Just a note, all my life growing up, I started making this cake by the time I was about 8. Instead of the melted butter that it calls for, we always used oil. So there's the one hole with the oil, and I'm going to take that one off so it doesn't drip all over. And we're going to go, I need a little over 2 teaspoons of oil for half of 1.5 tablespoons. So we're going to do, there's 1 teaspoon. There's 2 teaspoons. And I'm not going to go quite a half, but part of a partial half. And then I'm going to add vanilla, about a half teaspoon. Then I'm going to start stirring and might even get out the beaters. Oh yeah, I need to dump the water. Dump over it all the water. And Mom says a whisk. She's got a frog in her throat today. But this recipe, for some reason, is so moist, and it's not dry, it's not airy, it raises well, but it keeps a nice moist texture, and it's not really dense. It's just not light. I don't know how to describe it, but I'm gonna replace the fork with a whisk and do this and put it in a pan. The timer just the oven just came to temperature. I'm going to put both of these in together. This says to bake for 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going to set the timer for 20 and we'll check it at 20. This is the spice cake. And this is the chocolate cake. Just me trying something because I like spice cake. I just
Don't like it dry.
Yeah, I don't like it dry, so we're trying this. This cake doesn't have egg, and the only leavening in it is the soda and vinegar, similar to Irish soda bread. But 20 or so minutes, we'll be back to it. I just set this at 20 minutes for these half cakes, and I just made them drop by pulling the shelf in the oven out to check them. And so we're going to do them for another 10 minutes, give them a total of 30, which they always need, Mom says. Usually these cakes have a beautiful rounded top, and these just dropped. You'll see them when I bring them out. The light's out in the oven, by the way, so can't show. I just pulled these out. You can see a little recess in the tops. That's because I tried to move the rack, not shelf, in the oven at 20 minutes, and I should have just left them at 30 minutes and they would have had a beautiful rounded top. I like cream cheese frosting on these. Carrot cake, the reason I always liked it was because it had cream cheese frosting. Spice cake, that's all it is, a carrot cake without the carrots. But we're gonna, Mom says she's got a recipe for doing cream cheese and Cool Whip, and we might do that. But this pan goes in an this cake goes in an ungreased pan, and it's not meant to come out until you're ready to serve it. When you take it out, literally, you have to scrape a wonderful, gooey, moist bottom off the pan. You can grease and flour these and get them out. They won't last long enough. I talked about how moist this cake is and how it will leave this gooey, wonderful stuff at the bottom of the pan after you took a slice out. Look at that. Does that just not look yummy? It is yummy. I'm going to eat it, and then I'm going to rinse my tool and take some out of this one. Spice cake had that same ooey gooey moistness underneath. And here are the two pieces. I cut the chocolate a little bigger because it's in a 7x11 pan versus the spice cake in a 7x7. This is a 7x7, by the way. I measured it. And we're going to, between the two of us, taste these and see. We know that this one's good because we've done this recipe hundreds literally of times. This is the trial. We're going to see how the spices are. Just a bit. We're getting forks. Here's the trial. The texture is a little bit different than when it's chocolate. Let's try it.
Oh yeah, that spice cake.
It does have a little bit different texture, and I don't know why that is versus the chocolate versus the spice cake. The only difference is cocoa in the chocolate versus cloves, cinnamon, and nutmeg in the other. It is a really, really good cake, and maybe it's because I took this out of a corner and I got the corner. That might have been why the texture. Let me taste from the other corner where it was against the other pieces.
That is a good spice cake.
It's a really good cake, but I'm going to test texture on
I got it.
On this one and see how much different it is. It just seems the texture's a little moister, a little more dense on the spice cake.
A little tougher.
Yeah. This is as well. It's not a really light cake. It's fairly dense,
They're dense. They're supposed to be.
but it's really moist, really good. And we did good on both of them. The spice cake turned out phenomenal. There it is. And we knew that the chocolate would turn out because it just always has been a wonderful cake. I'm actually did this. I was talking to a friend. I'm going to take them the recipe. I typed it out. I need to print it for her, and I'm going to take her a couple pieces of this as well. Just because the day I had the thought, I happened to see her, and she cooks, and she loves to cook, and so I talked to her about it. So
Here we go.
we'll go take that to her, and like I said, this is a wonderful cake. Both of them are coming out wonderful. The cakes turned out really yummy, and I've delivered pieces to a couple of people. And just to prove that that wasn't all I did today, there's a fresh loaf of bread. This is actually using bread flour, not home ground flour, because I kind of had to rush it because Mom ran out of bread and didn't tell me. Been working outside as well. Batteries died on the weed eater. Charging them, charging the lawnmower. It doesn't look like a day conducive to working in the yard much, but tomorrow hopefully will be. Thanks for watching Perhaps Cooking. Feel free to share, give me a thumbs up, or subscribe.